Welcome to Order Militaris Radio TV, and today's topic is our update on terrorism and vandalism around the world. Yes, last Monday was a little short, brief, a little bit on what's going on. It exploded during the week, and if this show is too long, sorry, but we gotta cover it all. We welcome again Brother Alexis Bonolo to the show.
Thank you, AJ, for having me on Order Militaris Radio TV. It's always great to be on this new information initiative, breaking new grounds in the English-speaking world for independent Catholic media. And especially today, I'm glad to be with you as in my capacity as president of Order Militaris, a Montana corporation organized for the defense and liberation of Christians persecuted for their name. Terrorism is on our watch list, and this weekly program is a great way for everyone to realize how widespread and endemic is the problem of terrorism, and how terrorists of all kinds and Marxists who are attacking Christians are highly organized, and how we also need to be highly organized in our defense.
I want to give an update on Antifa and Black Lives Matter in Portland. Let's see, Saturday or Sunday. I believe it was Saturday. They showed their true colors. They were burning Bibles.
Yep. Now, the liberals have gone after Catholics for decades, saying that we burnt Bibles. We only burnt bad translations of Bibles by people who wanted to twist scriptures. Oh, but we were bad. Antifa does it, and they get praised. No one faults them at all.
Mm-hmm.
I would only add this footnote, is since the Catholic Bible, the only really correct translation, Douay Rheims, or the Clementine Vulgate, is not easily found. They probably burnt the wrong Bibles. So ironically, they might have been burning the same translations that Catholics once burned, but we did it to protect the truth of Scripture. They're doing it out of hatred for the Word of God.
It shows how anti-God they are. That shows exactly who they are and how they are aligned with Hitler and the brown shirts who, in that great big rally in, was it Nuremberg or Berlin, where they burned books, including the Bible.
Mm-hmm. Yeah, these groups have nothing to do with the rights for Black people. I'd say probably 90% of all Black people in the United States are Christians. They would never burn a Bible. So.
Now
And for those who don't know, Portland, Maine, well, they do have a Black community in Portland, Maine, but it's mostly left-wingers and
Portland, Washington.
Yeah, and people from parts of the world that Obama, Portland, Washington, excuse me. Then it's left-wingers.
Yeah, there's quite a few different two towns with same name. Kind of weird. I wonder who thought that one up.
There's a Portland, England. It's famous. So.
Mm-hmm. All right, on to, I think, European stuff. Let's go to the leader of the AfD party in Germany. Let's see. Alice Weddle. German cuddly justice makes girls fair game. African perpetrator after raping an 11-year-old in Dortmund, caught and released, strikes again and rapes 13 years olds. A shame for our country and our certificate of poverty for our judiciary.
That's a really mild statement on her behalf. She should ask for the judge's head.
Yeah. What type of justice, what type of law system do they have in modern Germany?
It's a standard kind of Masonic legal system where there is no absolute truth. The judges can make it up. you know, and without impunity. The problem with modern judicial systems is the judges have full immunity. They're the only federal agents or government employees that are completely immune in their activities and almost never get punished, and certainly don't go to jail unless for extreme kinds of corruption, which are very rare. But their most common form of corruption is on the bench and their rulings every day, according to their whims and not according to what is right and wrong, morally upright, or even sometimes not even according to the law. They push the ideologic agenda of the group they represent. And people who meet them in private at cocktail parties or golf courses are the ones who get the rulings in their favor. And it's all a hidden system of corruption to maintain the appearance of a democracy while a small elite actually runs the country. And that's why there isn't really a true democracy unless judges are elected by people. And there isn't really true justice unless the people appointing the judges are also people of great Christian faith and virtue and only appoint at the same time. And that doesn't exist in the modern Masonic state.
Yeah. This is from Jihad Watch by Robert Spencer. Title is Muslim Sociologist. Rabid dogs who oppose Islam, should it be crucified and have their tongues cut out? Okay.
So the Muslims have no restraint on explaining how they would deal out justice. If a Christian said the same thing about Muslims, he'd be branded a racist. I was walking down the street last night in Rome, and a drunk Iranian passed me. And as soon as he saw me, though he was drunk and didn't speak Italian very well, he said, "Cristiani merda," which means Christians are shit. Now, if I said that, if I changed the word Christian to his religion and said that on any street in Europe, I might get arrested.
Wow.
Yeah, that's so, they come to Europe. They even try to learn the European languages, but they don't give up their hatred. Many of them, not all of them, but many of them.
Let's see here. Al-Ansari accuses Isa and Wafia of Hirababa, which is unlawful warfare. This is the term that Islamic supremacists want counter-terror analysts and law enforcement officials to use instead of jihad, but Al-Ansari uses it not of jihad terrorists, but of a couple of journalists who oppose the spread of the extreme ideology. The irony of this will almost certainly be lost on the mainstream counter-terror analyst, if indeed they notice at all. This is the recompense of those who fight against Allah and His Messenger, and hasten about the earth to do corruption there. They shall be killed or crucified, or their hands and feet shall be struck off on opposite sides, or they shall be exiled from the land. That is the degradation for them in this world. In the world to come awaits them a mighty chastisement. From the Quran, chapter 5, verse 33.
Yeah, so any Muslim who claims that counterterrorism is unjust is obviously a jihadi. And any left-wing Western Europe organization that persecutes counter-terrorist organizations are obviously pro-jihadi and pro-terrorism. Twitter is pro-terrorism. Facebook is pro-terrorism. A lot of media platforms are pro-terrorism because if you actually talk against terrorism, they'll come after you. And Facebook, first of all. So, yeah, people need to wake up and notice when someone's talking like that.
Yeah. And see if I can get my translator to work. Yes, translate. This is in France. There we go. Let's see here. In the Saint Francois Communal Cemetery in Thionville. Robberies in the Thionville Cemetery. Between the 26th and 27th July, about 21 bronze statuettes depicting Christ or the Virgin Mary were torn and stolen from the Saint Francois Communal Cemetery in Thionville. This is a targeted, premeditated, and large-scale operation, according to the municipality. A complaint has been filed.
Yeah, to take 1 or 2 might be vandalism by a small group, but 21 is someone who's probably stealing them for target practice.
Yeah.
And this is most likely done by the left in France. The youth are highly indoctrinated in Marxist ideology in their schools and taught to hate religion as a way of justifying the French Revolution, which butchered France and raped her of every sense of dignity, integrity, or morality. And they're just die-hard brainwashed by the time they're 18, so they just act it out. And here we have an example of it.
They're showing a photo of one of the cemetery grave markers. Looks like it was pretty well secured, and they couldn't get the base off it, so they had to cut it.
Yeah, this group had equipment, so they probably took some equipment from their father's shops and stuff. In France, the cemeteries are not right next to town. They're out in the countryside frequently, and this is probably the case. So it's a site that has no nighttime illumination. Excuse me. And therefore, it's easy to perpetrate in the absolute pitch of black. But that also means that if they did it at that hour of the night, that they also brought lights. So yes, it was highly organized and planned.
Yeah.
And have they nothing better to do with their lives? You notice how the left, when they want to commit an act of terrorism, of vandalism, they never vandalize an Islamic mosque because that's their ally. And they show you their alliance by the fact that they never attack one another. And they're both Masonic, and that's why.
Yeah.
Masons will never attack Masons.
This is again from the Jihad Watch. In France, Muslims purposely hit 23-year-old woman with car, drag her 800 meters to her death. This is a frequent jihadi tactic. The Islamic State issued this call in September 2014. The call is they are asking you actually to use your car to do what this one jihadi did recently. So there is still networks and sleeper cells in France who are still following out this.
Yeah, and the West needs to wake up because radical Islamic terrorists live at the level of barbarians. If they don't see a pushback, if they don't see an equal or greater counter offensive to any attack they make, that encourages them, makes them think you're weak. Now, if that jihadi terrorist is taken from the car and then dragged under a vehicle for a mile until he's ground to little pulp, then they would get the message and then they wouldn't do it. But if they don't get that kind of counter violence, they're not going to stop because they're at the level of barbarians. And this doesn't mean we have to become barbarians to defeat them, but you have to use force with force, and capital punishment by any means is a legitimate defense of a nation.
Yeah, let's see here. Outrage in France after 23-year-old Alexia Dorier killed by Yusuf T and Mohammed Y in a brutal hit and run. She was walking her dog. She was a French woman, nurse, and struck by a vehicle and dragged 800 meters to her death on July 19 while walking her dog in the city of Lyon. With prosecutors stating that the migrant driver knowingly knocked down and drove away from her dismembered body. The 21-year-old driver, Yusuf T, has been placed into custody for manslaughter for being responsible for the hit-and-run death, Lyon prosecutors say. Maitre Céline Cooper, a far-left lawyer who is defending the suspect, said, The popular outrage over the incident is from the right-wing citizens and lambasted the French Minister of the Interior of having spoken of murder in the case.
No, it wasn't murder. It was an act of love. They probably hit her because she had a dog, and Muslims consider dogs unclean.
Yeah.
And it's forbidden for Islamic women to carry the dog. But Lyon has such a strong left-wing thing that some years ago when I was in France, it was 16 years ago, an insurance company had a big ad about how they will serve you faithfully. And they had a picture from a French comedy from like the 19th century, in which a Frenchman was being served by his butler, and the butler was a Moroccan Muslim dressed up in a Western style suit. There was an outrage. The Muslims complained. So within a few days, the image was changed, and there was a Muslim dressed in his clothing, Islamic clothing, being served by a Frenchman. And the left felt that that was not racist, but the first one was.
Mm-hmm.
And that's how they want to turn. That's what the left wants to do to the West. They want you to serve their allies.
National Rally leader Marine Le Pen wrote, "What level of barbarism must we reach for the French people to say stop to this wildness of our society? How many policemen, gendarmes, bus drivers, slaughtered young girls or boys does it take?"
Yeah, France is suffering this because the will to resist a corrupt government was broken in the French Revolution, where they wiped out all the Catholics who wanted an honest and just government, and crooks got control. And the crooks have been in control of France for 200 years now. So there is no will to resist invasion because the French revolutionaries, the Freemasons, have crushed it. Okay, so now they're bringing in their brown shirts, which are radical Muslims, and they're trying to ultimately destroy all of France, because that was the purpose in the beginning, to destroy all Western civilization in France. And people forget that Muslims are members of the Lodge. The Lodge conflicts a lot less with the Islamic religion than it does with, totally contradicts the Christian one, but it doesn't conflict with the Islamic.
Yeah.
So France will continue to go down unless the people who realize to oppose the French Revolution start realizing that the French government has no authority to govern them, and they must establish their own regional governments and reestablish a Catholic France.
Yeah.
Otherwise, France shall be no more. It shall become Saudi Arabia, or even worse, a caliphate.
Okay, let's get to another one. This one comes from Church Militant. Christian girls raped by Muslims. Okay. A Pakistani Muslim is being ordered to appear in court for the abduction and rape of a 14-year-old Christian girl. 24-year-old Jabbar Khan Quazarani will appear in court for the October kidnapping and repeated rape of 14-year-old Huma Yunus, who Quazarani claimed was an adult, in which case Sharia law allows for a Christian woman to be forcibly seized and married off to her Muslim captor. However, the court in Karachi, Pakistan, ruled a prior decision by a lower court that Yunus was an adult is false. That as a minor, Sharia law does not apply and Yunus must be returned to her family. But in the nearly 10 months that have passed, the now 15-year-old has become pregnant while in captivity. A translator for Yunus' mother said, "If they would have done something at the time, the daughter of Najina would have been recovered, and maybe she wouldn't be in this situation. But she is right now. She requests she should get her daughter back because she says that you can only feel this pain if you have a daughter."
Here is the absolute level of barbarity of Pakistan. It should be embargoed by all Western nations to treat women like that. You hear what the court said? If she had been an adult, it would have been okay.
Yeah.
That she was kidnapped and raped. And in Islam, they try to force the woman after kidnapping and rape to become a Muslim, threatening her with death. Then if she becomes a Muslim and ever escapes and renounces Islam, then they have a right to murder her. So it's a complete system of absolute depravity and barbarity. And, if there was any Christian leader in the West, he'd send over his fleet and he'd threaten to bombard the entire country until they released that woman.
Yeah.
But we don't have Christian leadership in the West. And so the Masons laugh at that. And they laugh at you for enduring it and doing nothing about it and allowing them and still voting for their candidates in your country, because they know what's going on. It's just that people need to admit the reality and stop closing their eyes to how wicked the Masonic order is and how countries under Sharia law are barbarous nations. And they merit no respect for that.
Yeah. Let's see. Okay. Yeah, I don't know. Should I tell him what? Yeah, I don't want to get kicked off. Saying, I know one way to handle justice, but it'd be through my one relative who became famous for it.
Let's keep to the news thing, unless people think we're implying what we're not implying.
See if we can translate this thing. There we go. A Frontex reconnaissance aircraft detects 500 boats ready to set sail from Ghana, Algeria. Police source confirms that they expect 5,000 illegal immigrants to arrive in the coming weeks. This must stop.
I want to thank Te Dari Misericordia for this report from Spain. So Spain has a problem with illegal immigration like most countries with southern borders, except Spain's southern border is all water. So it's more difficult, and they only have a few thousand a year actually make the strait, cross the strait to Spain. But now the illegal immigrants, and they're all Muslims nearly, have organized 500 small craft, and they're going to go over in a flotilla to Spain with like 10 men a boat. So this is an actual organized naval invasion.
Mm-hmm.
And hopefully the Spanish government will do something about it, but it's hard to track down 500 boats when the Spanish Navy doesn't even have 500 craft themselves, although those are much larger ships. And but it's not so easy to cross where they're crossing. And in a small boat, if a storm or wind picks up, they could easily drown.
Let's see. Yeah. I'm not sure what ocean or gulf or whatever that is, but you should have some sort of seawall right there to stop them.
It's just south of where Grenada is.
Yeah.
It's the southern, they cross there especially because on the Spanish side are all the nice sandy beaches. And so they arrive right there.
Okay. We got through those pretty quick. You wanna, let's see. Would you like to add the Scotland thing to it?
Yeah, let's talk about what's going on in Scotland and in Italy, because this is persecution of Christians. The left now is so confident that they can wipe Christianity out that they're passing laws to wipe Christianity out, and they're called homophobia laws. And go ahead, eh?
Let's see here. Come on now. Give me a bell. There we go. Okay. I'll read the news piece about the new bill in Scottish Parliament. Then I'll read you about the person who actually is doing this.
Sponsor the bill?
Mm-hmm. Yeah.
Very interesting.
From Catholic Herald. The title is Scottish Catholics warn hate crime bill could criminalize the catechism. Christians risk being prosecuted for quoting the Bible or the Catechism of the Catholic Church. If Scotland passes a new hate speech legislation, the Scottish Church has warned a bill that would criminalize behaving in threatening, abusive, or insulting manner, or communicating threatening, abusive, or insulting material that either intends to stir up hatred against a protected group or is likely to cause hatred is currently before the Scottish Parliament. However, critics say the bill could lead to people being charged for expressing traditional Christian teaching or even simply possessing material deemed to be offensive, so that you could not even possess a Bible or the Catechism.
Yeah, the general objective of the left is to take that Bible and gun out of your hands. So they do gun control laws, and now they have the homophobia laws. They're doing the same thing in Italy. They're going to debate and vote in Parliament today the Zan Scalafarato law, which would make you subject to a possible 6 years imprisonment, 2 years of slave work for a pro-gay organization, confinement to your house at nighttime for a year, loss of your driver's license, and loss of your passport, so you can't even leave Italy. It turns Italy into a gulag archipelago. If you should so much as show that you're afraid of perverts or that you somehow don't like them, and on top of that, the person who accuses you, he doesn't have to pay any legal expenses. The government will pay all his legal expenses, even if the case is lost and you are found innocent. But you have to pay all your expenses.
Yeah.
And without a driver's license, you can't even get to work. So basically destroys your employment
Yeah.
at the same time. Oh, on top of it, you can never speak at a political rally again for the rest of your life, and you can never run for office for the rest of your life. So as soon as and the next election comes up, the left is just going to accuse all the other candidates of homophobia. They'll be dragged to court, put in a 5-year legal process, and after 5 years, well, obviously they can't run for office anymore. So it's establish a one-party state, the pro-gay state of Italy. If the law passes and the president signs it, it will be the first nation enslaved by the gay movement.
Yeah. Now, about the hate crime law introduced into the Scottish Parliament, I want to thank Francisco Joseph Dugan for tracking this down on putting it on his Facebook, which I'm impressed Facebook allowed him to do it. I copied and pasted it into my other Order Militaris Radio blog. Hate crime law introduced to Scotland by SNP Muslim Justice Minister. Scotland's Catholics have been persecuted since the Calvinists in John Knox brought Satan to Scotland. Professor Edwin Muir goes on to report the ideology of Der Führer of Scotland's Presbyterians. Any Protestant had obviously, therefore, the right to kill any Catholic. It was the collective duty of Protestants, however, to exterminate the Catholics en masse. Okay.
So Presbyterians were terrorists.
Yeah. Okay. That's.
But the Minister of Justice, can you imagine a left-wing party in Scotland appointing as Minister of Justice a Muslim?
Mm-hmm.
That's a way of saying Presbyterianism is Islamic terrorism in the sense that it's anti-Catholic, and that law certainly.
The man's name is Hamaza Yusuf, Director of Public Affairs at the SIF, said, "We believe that the very nature of Islam adapts across the centuries. But what we are doing is trying to modernize ourselves and remind ourselves of what Islam actually says and reach out to the people of Scotland." The representatives of the SIF will also sit on the SNP's working group on Trident. Mosques are being urged to refer to the Global Day of Action on Poverty during Friday's sermons. It is his hope that Islamic voice will be heard in civil society as Muslims join in the big debates. Yusuf added, "Most of the time, Muslims are talking about foreign affairs, but what we're trying to say is that there are challenges here that we can tackle as Muslims and need to have an Islamic viewpoint on."
Yeah, like persecuting Christians. That's something they can participate in well with the left.
Mhm. The chief executive of the SIF is Osama Saeed, said, "We showed arguably the most influential Arab around the hills in the locks, and he was really impressed. We also met with Deputy First Minister and talked about how Scotland could promote itself and how little Muslim world knows about Scotland."
Yeah, and the best thing I guess Scotland could do, just invite them all over and start a new Islamic migration to Scotland. That would do wonders. But that's what the left wants. They want to destroy you and your nation and your people. People need to wake up. And the problem is, you know, AJ, we've been talking about 4 years. People need to wake up, smell the coffee, and start acting differently than they're doing. But 4 years have passed now, and people still just twittering away their lives and letting the whole West fall apart instead of organizing. And Order Militaris Catholicus is an organization that can do something about it if you want to do something about it. So I think our Lord has raised us up so that no one and the day of judgment can say, but I didn't have any organization to help me if I wanted help. Yeah, well, we're here to help you. So um, I want to point out right now that when civilizations collapse, when barbarians invade, most people are slaughtered, okay? For example, Rome was the center of Western civilization. It had an empire, it had ruled the Mediterranean for 1,000 years. And Italy was utterly destroyed by barbarian invasions because Italians no longer wanted to sign up and serve in the Roman legions to defend their country. They only wanted to surrender. And so complete was the destruction of the Roman culture in Italy that Italians don't even speak Latin anymore. They speak a Lombard version of Latin, which is all messed up in so many ways. As a Latinist, I can tell you, I have to speak Italian every day, and I'm constantly amazed on how many things are just completely wrong. And their civic buildings were destroyed, their roads were destroyed, their aqueducts were destroyed, their cities were destroyed, their libraries were destroyed, their culture was destroyed, even their identity as Romans was destroyed. Their culture was destroyed, their civilization was completely destroyed because they wouldn't take up arms and defend themselves, and they wouldn't organize the defense of themselves, and they wouldn't elect honest men to government who wanted to defend. They only elected corrupt men to government who allowed the barbarians in. And it's happening again. And so we've been telling everyone you need to do something, but I don't see any political movement in the West whatsoever to resist invasion or Marxist takeover. The parties have all been compromised, or they've turned into, you know, we pretend to defend, but they're not. They won't even allow the argument to be raised. We need Christian parties, and yet no one's doing that. In Italy, I'm working with a group of Catholics to found a party to do something, but elsewhere in the West, no one's doing anything. So the only other solution is for the Catholics who want to make a decisive decision to save themselves and their families. And that's why the order is now proposing a thing called the Crusader option. And if you come to the news page at order-militaris.us, you can find a link to it. And this is for Catholics who have some means. You have to have $100,000 US per member of your family, and you have to be willing to sell everything you have and flee where you are to form a Catholic community in the countryside, highly fortified, defensive, where people will be able to live, work, pray, go to school, and run a business, and resist the invasion of their country or the Marxist takeover of their country. And I can say nothing more about it in public, but you call our offices at 1406-299-9260, and I can explain to you once we have, we're looking for 100 individuals, but once we have enough, more than 100 subscribers, then I'll select the best of the best, and we'll put the project into motion. But you got to act now. You got to wake up. You have to realize that you're not going to survive in a community because where you are. Why? Because the Masons, through the Marxists and the Muslims in your part of the world, in your nation, they are taking over the complete structure of society. So the police won't want to defend you. They'll end up arresting you, and you'll be forcibly vaccinated and your health will be destroyed. Or you'll be sterilized, because they want to reduce the population to 1 billion, or at least down a couple billion. And Catholics will only survive in communities that are controlled by Catholics in the countryside and highly defended, where the whole community itself can present itself as unable to be persuaded by anything or by force because of its defensive position and its self-supporting nature.
To the Scots in Scotland, there's a way you can do this. I was looking at it carefully. You can form an independent party. You got your Protestants, your Catholics. Form an independent Christian party to save your heritage, save Scotland. I'm speaking to you now as the heir of the Stuart line and the 43rd great grandson of Saint Queen Margaret of Scotland. Wake up. You got to wake up and form that independent Christian party in Scotland. The National Party of Scotland is nothing but a left-wing hag. They don't care about Scotland. If they did, they wouldn't be inviting these invaders, Muslims, and they wouldn't be shipping off jobs to UK, to Brussels, or wherever. We need to form an independent Christian party that loves Scotland, that will protect the jobs of Scotland, that will protect the people of Scotland. It's time for a new William Wallace to rise and defend Scotland.
If the Scottish want to remain a Scottish country, and if they truly love their country, they need to unite their faith with their patriotism, because that will give them the strength. But you have to stop listening to all the spiel, all the lies, all the propaganda of the left, and you have to start thinking for yourself and remembering who you have descended from. Your forefathers, Scots, are great people known for their independence. To surrender to leftists or Marxists is shameful, and it will destroy Scotland ultimately.
Yesterday, you said, "Why don't you check your Teespring store?" I was like, "Okay." I want to thank you all for buying stuff. I was like, "Wow." So
yeah, you had sales all the way from Australia, right?
Oh yeah. Yeah, thank you for buying stuff in Australia. It was really amazing and touching. And we still have our mugs, stickers, T-shirt, hoodie. Now we have 2 versions of new sweatshirts with the Lepanto image on them. The first one is a gray one, but it has the Holy League 15. I can't.
71.
Yeah,
1571
on the front and the image on the back. Then on the front one and on the white one, it has the image with the Holy League 1571 up here, and what in Western civilization, let's say by Catholics, below the image. And you can again go to our Porta Militaris Radio store, which is linked on the menu bar. You'll see all the new products there. I removed the cell phone cases because they weren't moving and no one wants to support those liberal Marxist companies. So I just all right, remove those things. So that gave me the option to create some stuff. Working on creating a few more things for the Lepanto image, if it can be created and And I'll see what link I can click to make sure it can be sold globally. Because certain items can only be either done in EU or the US. So see what we can do.
Mm-hmm. Yeah, the hoodies and the shirts with the blue cross of the Ordo Militaris Radio are a great way to send a strong message. You go out for a jog with one of those on, or you go out walking, and it will create conversation. But the Lepanto flag really get people to talk. So make sure you know a little about a Lepanto flag. Our clients really love the Lepanto flag. I had someone, a mother call me from California the other day, and she was telling me how wonderful the flag was. She had her young son in homeschool memorize the entire poem by G.K. Chesterton and Lepanto and recite it. So now she's just thrilled that she can fly the Lepanto flag from her porch flagpole. And the ultimate Catholic symbols. We in an age where Catholics need to use their symbols to show their faith. Western civilization was built by Catholics, and only Catholics can save Western civilization. The Republican Party can't do it. The Democratic Party can't do it. Nationalist Party can't do it. It has to be a Catholic party, okay? If a Christian party, it has to be, because Catholics built Western civilization. That means only Catholics can save it. So if you're voting for something that's not a Catholic party, you're not voting for the salvation of Western civilization. If you're involved in a project that's not run by Catholics, it will not save you, it will betray you, okay? And if you're involved in a group that's not about security and defense, you will be overcome. So I just want to point this out. Someone on Twitter asked us the other day to sell merchandise with the symbol of the Sacred Heart of the Vendée. And I made this clear point. In Ordo Militaris, we do not sell symbols of the Vendée or the Cristeros. Not because we don't admire their heroism and their courage and what they attempted to do. We only sell symbols of Catholics who are victorious, that is of Lepanto or of the Crusaders, because we don't want you in the mindset of admiring people who lost the battle. We want to get you in the mindset of admiring people who won the battle, okay? And that's why you need to admire the Crusaders and the fighters at Lepanto, because they're the ones that won, okay? So there are a lot of traditional Latin mass groups that use that symbol of the Vendée, but you are subtly being psychologically conditioned to admire defeat.
Mm-hmm.
Okay, I want you to think about that. You're being taught to admire defeat. And that is not happenstance, because the church in France has been defeated by Freemasonry, and French clergy want you to admire defeat, because if they told you to admire victory, they would be arrested by the French government. Okay, you will never hear the French talking about the Battle of Lepanto or the Crusades, because it's just off limits. Oh, I'd be arrested. I had my account suspended. Blah 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 blah. So don't admire defeat. That is psychologically the wrong strategy. It's going to encourage you to sacrifice yourself and lose. If you're going to sacrifice yourself, it should be to win, okay?
Mm-hmm.
So I would encourage Catholics to stop using the symbol of the Vendée and start using the cross of the Crusaders or the flag of Lepanto, because those are symbols of victory, okay? And we need to prepare for victory, not for defeat. And that takes, serious action. Catholics are just not acting with common sense. They've had these pilgrimages to Chartres now for like 20, 30, maybe 40 years. In the beginning, they were quite edifying. Everyone dressed in a very edifying way. Now they're wearing all kinds of T-shirts, shorts, girls and boys sleeping together and everything. Don't send your kids to a group like that, okay? Your sons should be sent to a military camp to teach them how to fight. That's what they need to do, because the fight is coming and the persecutors will be at your door. And how will you defend yourself if your family has admired defeat?
Yep. And how can you get the flag?
So if you want the flag, you can go to ordomilitaris.us and go to our shop tab and get a flag. We have big and small. But there's something more important, and this, I like the fact that Catholics are buying our flag. I think when we first came out, we sold, like I said, about 200. And I want to personally thank Father Z for pushing it, because when Father Z endorsed it, tons of people bought it. But I was amazed that no one who bought it wanted to defend Christianity. They wanted something they could fly out of their house, fly around or show someone or put in their church. They said, oh, look, looks beautiful. Let's remember the olden days. But you have to realize that the world is now, the barbarians are not beyond the gate. They're pouring in to the city of Western civilization, and you have to take up arms and defend. You have to make decisive decisions. And yet I see nothing out there yet. I don't see anything. So if you are a person of means, call me up and talk about the Crusader option. That's one solution. If you want an organization to start training men to defend you, then buy our stock in Ordo Militaris Inc. of Montana, either the Y series for building a camp in North America or the T series for founding security companies around the world to defend you. But just don't sit there and, I've talked to so many Catholics, oh, my money's in the market, meaning they're invested in Microsoft, which is betrayed them. They're invested in all these big companies that are now supporting Black Lives Matter. They're invested in all these companies that are destroying them. And they said, I want to have a secure investment, so I'm going to invest in the companies that are destroying. You're going to destroy me, exterminate me, and put a vaccine in my arm and a bullet in my head, because that's financial security. That's how whacked out people are. If you are common sense Catholic and you can see what's going on, the last place you'd put your money in is companies like that. You would take all your money out of the market and then put it in something that's going to defend you and your family, not make wealthier your enemies. I mean, use a little common sense. People have lost totally their common sense. They're like completely brainwashed by either Twitter or television. They don't realize that they're headed to destruction. They're not even doing anything about it. At most, they'll do a thumbs up, like a zombie in a medical ward that's near death. They'll do that thumbs up, and that's all they'll do. That's the only reaction they have left, a like on social media. They don't do anything else. They just do like. That's all they can do. They can't move anything but that little thumb, like. Don't you realize that you've been made brain dead by MK Ultra tactics? You've been brainwashed. You've been neutralized. You have been totally conquered psychologically, ideologically. Your freedom is in taking decisive action or fleeing, and doing both. Okay. And there are a lot of groups that have Catholic communities in the countryside where you can go. I'm not saying Ordo Militaris is the only solution, but I think a security and defense company can do it better. And we have the will, and there's so many military guys and young guys who'd like to join us, but we don't have the financing because Catholics with the money won't act. They're all dead and neutralized, and it's a sad note. I hope Ordo Militaris can someday do something to help Catholics, but we might be the last herald of the last word of hope before the lights go out and we enter a very dark age of absolute diabolic medical, psychological, technological control of everyone, where what you've seen in the movie Matrix is their end goal, to turn you into just cattle where you're absolutely controlled in every aspect of your life, your mind, and your body to serve their machine. Mm-hmm. And unless you wake up and start living your faith and take decisive action and divest from the entire establishment, okay, and start using your money to defend yourself. Every Catholic family should have its own safe, put its money in cash, and learn how to use guns, get licenses for every adult in your family, and defend yourself. And if you're not in a safe town, put your house on the market and get out. Because if you're in a town where the policeman is a Democrat, he'll come to your door someday. He'll send people to your door someday, and you'll be dragged off and never seen again by your family. So it is highly insecure if you're in a town with high levels of certain minorities who have been instrumentalized to work as brown shirts of the new Nazi state. Get out of those towns because they're going to come for you. Mm-hmm. And Catholics have to organize. We can see the same kind of protests going on in the United States, in Latin America, in Managua. One thing we didn't mention, they firebombed. Yeah, you want to talk about what happened in Managua?
Yeah.
All around the world, they're doing the same thing because they're highly organized. We are not highly organize. We need to highly organize. Okay, Catholics need to start cooperating with one another for their security and defense. That's what Ordo Militaris is here for.
Yeah. It was yesterday, wasn't it?
I think it was like Saturday, maybe.
Saturday in that, what was that city?
Managua.
Managua,
Managua, the capital.
the capital of Nicaragua. The cathedral was fired, but not the cathedral itself, but the crucifix inside this cathedral was
In the
fired.
chapel, yeah. Yeah, someone went into the chapel of the Holy Cross, and a 16th century ancient carved wooden crucifix that was the object of Catholics' devotion in the whole city. And they threw a Molotov cocktail in there and burn out the whole chapter and completely burn up the wood of the cross and melted the tabernacle. That's how powerful this fire was. And it was obviously done by Marxists because there's no black community or BLM in Managua. So the left is highly organized. This has nothing to do with black people. This is all about Marxism. And the Marxists want us exterminated, just like the French revolutionaries wanted us exterminated, just like the Nazis wanted us exterminated, just like the Stalinists of Russia wanted us exterminated, and just like the government of Peking wanted us exterminated, and just like the Marxist regime in Nicaragua for long wanted the church exterminated, just like the Freemasons in Mexico who fought the Cristeros wanted Catholics exterminated. They all agree on one thing: exterminate Catholics. So if you're voting for their parties, if you're investing in their companies, you're excuse my language, you're a complete idiot. You're absolutely a complete idiot. And I tell all Catholics this, I'm not just talking to the listeners of our radio TV station. Wake up and realize who your enemies are and make a decisive decision to disinvest and take your money out of these groups. Don't even work with banks to support Black Lives Matter, okay? But together we can do something, and this is what I think why our Lord raised up Ordo Militaris. We have studied the problem 4 years. We know how to solve the problem, but Catholics need to be willing to work with our order for that. And I can't say what the future is. I'm sure Catholics around the world in some other places will organize in some way. But I don't see how in the United States or in the West, if you're not working with Ordo Militaris, or at least doing the things we recommend done, how you'll survive the coming revolution. You won't survive.
Yeah.
You'll lose everything: your life, your liberty, and all your money and assets.
Well, this has been a great program. We'll be trying you something to do for tomorrow since we did it today. So stay tuned till tomorrow. We will be back then.
AJ, tomorrow, why don't we do a program on the Crusader option? We can talk more in detail about it, and that give you an idea. And because this is a way people can save themselves from the coming apocalypse, and this is a way our order can help you in that, and we have a plan. So
sounds good. Learn more about the Crusader option tomorrow. This is Ordo Militaris Radio TV signing off. Deus Volt.
Deus Volt.